One of the most disturbing cases you've ever heard. The horrible story of Lindsay Mercer. The wind howled across the Alpine Valley like a warning. Cold, shrill, and impossible to ignore. By the time searchers found Lindsay Mercer's abandoned car beside the forest road, the driver's seat was still warm, but she was gone. Before we begin, I want to let you know that due to the limited visual materials and the age of this case, there isn't much existing footage or imagery to support the story you're about to hear. As a result, this episode will feature a single image background throughout. Think of this as more of an immersive audio experience, a storytelling session that lets your imagination fill in the gaps. Now's the perfect time to grab your headphones, maybe even some popcorn, and settle in. Lindsay was just 24 when she vanished, a quiet, soft-spoken graphic designer from Missoula, Montana. She had moved back to her hometown of Salmon, Idaho, in the spring of 2004 after what friends described as a rough year. She needed to reset, to clear her head in the place where she'd grown up chasing trout along the Lemhi River and sketching pine-covered hills in her journal. Those who knew her best say something changed after Lindsay returned. She was distant, even paranoid at times. Her childhood friend, Jamie Elwell, later told police Lindsay believed someone was watching him, possibly following her. She never said who. Just days before she disappeared, she abruptly quit her remote design job, citing burnout and needing to get off the grid. She gave away her houseplants. She left her cat with her sister. Then, on a gray and bitter morning, October 19th, 2004, she drove north out of Salmon, took a left onto Forest Service Road 412 and never came home. The Lemhi Range sprawls like a forgotten spine across eastern Idaho, rugged, wind blast, and empty. Forest Service Road 412 cuts deep into it, a narrow, gravel ribbon with few markers and no cell service. By mid-October, snow clings to the shady crests. Daylight drains early. The air smells of wood smoke and wet pine. Lindsay's 1998 Subaru Outback was found just 6 miles up the road, neatly parked at the base of an unofficial trailhead, one with no name, no signage, and barely a footpath. Inside the vehicle, her jacket, her cell phone, and her wallet still zipped shut in her backpack. The doors were locked. There were no signs of a struggle, but her keys were gone. A bow hunter named Bill Crowley was the last known person to see Lindsay Mercer. At around 9:45 a.m., he passed a woman matching her description walking along the service road alone, wearing trail shoes and a maroon hoodie. She didn't appear in distress. She didn't acknowledge him at all. She looked determined. Crowley later told investigators, like she was on a mission. That trail she was walking toward, locals call it Indian Rock Cut. It doesn't appear on modern maps. Most people in Salmon have never even heard of it, but old ranchers and backcountry guides know it as a game trail, one that weaves through the remains of an abandoned mining camp from the early 1900s. Some say it's cursed. Others just say it's dangerous. When Lindsay didn't return home that night, her sister Melanie reported her missing. Authorities located her car early the next morning. A K-9 unit was deployed within hours, followed by search and rescue teams from Lemhi County and the Forest Service. Tracking dogs followed Lindsay's scent for nearly 2 miles up the trail. Then, suddenly, nothing. The trail cuts through dense forest, rocky switchbacks, and sudden drop-offs. At one point, it forks into 3 routes, one leading to an old mine shaft, another to an overgrown fire lookout, and the third to nowhere in particular, just forest. Search teams covered all 3. They found no blood, no clothing, no footprints beyond the 2-mile mark, and no sign of Lindsay Mercer. By the 3rd day, search efforts began to pull in more volunteers from the town, off-duty deputies, ranchers, even high school students with walkie-talkies. But something about the area made the teams uneasy. Several searchers reported hearing what sounded like a woman calling for help, but each time they pursued the voice, it led them nowhere. Some claimed their compasses spun unpredictably. A few locals recalled stories about the Indian Rock Cut Trail being haunted, how the miners who once worked there died in a cave-in in 1906. Their bodies never recovered. Of course, authorities chalked it up to superstition and stress. Still, after 6 days, the official search was suspended. 2 weeks after her disappearance, Melanie returned to Lindsay's cabin to collect her belongings. That's when she found something no one had noticed before, a journal tucked beneath Lindsay's mattress. Most of it was filled with sketches, quotes, and personal thoughts. But one page stood out. It was dated just 3 days before Lindsay vanished. The handwriting was rushed, barely legible. It read, "If I go missing, it's not an accident. And if they find my body, it's not the end of the story. There's something in those woods that knows more than it should." She didn't elaborate, and she didn't write again after that. Investigators combed through Lindsay's phone and computer. Her recent internet activity was sparse. No searches for trail routes, survival techniques, or weather. But there was one concerning detail. The day before she left, Lindsay had deleted all of her emails. When forensic techs tried to recover them, they found one subject line still partially intact. I saw him again." Authorities were never able to trace who him referred to. In the weeks that followed, sightings began to trickle in. A trucker in Challis reported seeing a woman who resembled Lindsay hitchhiking near U.S. Route 93. A cashier in Darby, Montana, swore a pale, shaken woman came in after closing, bought a map, and left without saying a word. None of these leads ever panned out. But in December 2004, a hiker found something unsettling about 4 miles north of the Indian Rock Cut Trail. A boot, women's size 7, half buried in snow. The make and tread matched the brand Lindsay owned. Next to the boot, embedded in a patch of frozen soil, was what appeared to be a single fingerprint. Partially smudged, impossible to identify. Why would a woman who left her jacket in the car willingly hike into freezing mountains with no survival gear? Why didn't she tell anyone exactly where she was going, not even her sister? And what about that final journal entry? Some theorists say she suffered a mental breakdown and became disoriented. Others believe she went out there intending to disappear. And then there are those, including members of her own family, who remain convinced she met someone in those woods. Someone she knew, someone she feared. Today, over 20 years later, Lindsay Mercer's case remains one of Idaho's most baffling disappearances. No remains have ever been found. No solid leads have ever emerged. And that chilling journal entry continues to haunt those who knew her best. But here's the part no one can explain. Every October since 2005, on the exact day she went missing, someone leaves a maroon hoodie folded neatly on the hood of her sister's car. No note, no witnesses, just silence. When 24-year-old Lindsay Mercer vanished in the mountains of Lemhi County, Idaho, in October of 2004, her disappearance stunned her hometown. A journal entry hinted at fear. Her abandoned car suggested intent. But beyond the trailhead, she simply vanished. No one could say exactly what happened that day. Today, we walk hour by hour to the last known timeline of Lindsay Mercer's final day, a story built on time-stamped sightings, found objects, and unexplained silence. Lindsay wakes early in her small rental cabin off U.S. Route 93. Her phone, later extracted by investigators, shows her alarm went off just after 7 a.m. sharp. She makes no outgoing calls. No text messages are sent. But she does open a map app, zooming in on an area marked simply 412 Lookout Trailhead. The cabin smart thermostat logs a temperature change. Heat off, windows open. Outside, a layer of frost glistens on the porch. It's 28 degrees. Lindsay's coffee cup is later found on the kitchen table, half full, lukewarm. Surveillance footage from the Conoco gas station on Main Street captures Lindsay at Pump 4, fueling up her green Subaru Outback. She wears a maroon hoodie, trail runners, and lightweight cargo pants. No jacket, no gloves. She pays in cash inside. The clerk, a man named Ray Donnelly, later tells detectives she looked tired, like she hadn't slept much. I asked if she was hiking alone, he says in the official interview. She just said, "It's not that far." It's the last known image of her alive. Lindsay turns left onto Forest Service Road 412, heading deep into the Lemhi Mountains. This gravel track winds sharply and climbs fast, with blind corners and rockfall warnings. Cell service cuts out within 3 miles. A hunter's trail cam, mounted discreetly about 5.4 miles in, snaps a photo of her Subaru passing. Investigators retrieve the image 2 days later. The timestamp reads 8:26 and 17 seconds a.m. She's alone, at a clearing near mile 6.1. Lindsay parks her Subaru just off the shoulder. Tire track suggests she reversed in a carefully aligned parallel to the tree line, not hurriedly. Inside, everything is orderly. Her wallet, phone, and folded jacket sit on the passenger seat. Her backpack remains zipped, placed in the rear footwell. No signs of struggle. No signs of preparation for a long hike. Keys missing. Glove box untouched. Her phone pings one last time at 8:46 a.m., then shuts off. Roughly 25 minutes later, a bow hunter named Bill Crowley hikes along the main forest road. He's returning to his truck after setting trail markers and stashes. As he rounds a bend, he spots a young woman walking alone, headed toward the Indian Rock Cut Trail fork. She passed maybe 15 feet from me, Crowley later reports. Didn't flinch, didn't wave, just walked straight past. Focus. He describes her clothing as consistent with Lindsay's, down to the trail shoes. But something felt off. No pack, no water bottle, no weather gear. I remember thinking, she's either local and cocky or she's making a mistake. A pair of hikers, John and Ellie Hargrove, later tell police they believe they saw someone matching Lindsay's description near the base of the Old Fire Lookout access route. But their memory is hazy. She might have been there, Ellie tells deputies, but it could have been a different person. We didn't get close, just saw a movement through the trees. Investigators marked the sighting as tentative, a possible red herring. No physical evidence places Lindsay near the fire lookout. 2 miles up the Indian Rock Cut Trail, search dogs would later stop abruptly. This spot becomes critical in the investigation. The trail here narrows sharply, running along a granite outcrop before splitting. Searchers dubbed this location Point Zero, the last confirmed scent site. No more footprints, no drag marks, no signs of wildlife activity, no evidence, she continued. It's as though Lindsay stepped off the trail and disappeared into thin air. Back in town, Melanie Mercer, Lindsay's older sister, sends her a text. You make out okay? It goes undelivered. Melanie assumes she's out of range. Hiking. Melanie texts again. Still hiking? Again, no delivery. She calls once, straight to voicemail. At 4:13 p.m., Melanie messages her cousin. You heard from Linz? She said she might hike, but no idea where. Starting to worry. That message becomes an early trigger for concern. The sun dips low behind the mountains. In October, the Lemhi backcountry darkens fast. Temperatures fall below freezing after sunset. Still no sign of Lindsay. At 6:05 p.m., Melanie drives to Lindsay's cabin. The lights are off. Her cat hasn't been fed. Nothing is out of place, except the quiet. Melanie makes the official missing persons call at 6:47 p.m. Lemhi County deputies begin a basic welfare check. With no idea where Lindsay went hiking, they mark her as missing, NON criminal, and wait for daylight to begin coordinated search efforts. At 8:21 p.m., her vehicle's plate number is entered into the statewide lookout system. An ATL attempt to locate is issued. A deputy on patrol spots Lindsay's green Subaru off Forest Road 412. It's exactly where she left it, undisturbed. Still locked. Still cold. Inside, her phone vibrates once, a voicemail from Melanie. Search and rescue is immediately dispatched. SAR teams from Lemhi County, Idaho Search and Rescue, and volunteers begin a Type 2 search protocol. Grid lines are mapped using GPS. The primary search zone extends 2 miles in all directions from the trailhead. K-9 units begin at Point Zero, and again lose the scent at the Granite Fork. It's as if she stopped walking, or someone carried her out. Near an overgrown creek bed, a boot print is discovered. It's small, possibly women's, and deep, suggesting recent weight. Initially, it seems promising, but it's later identified as belonging to a SAR volunteer who didn't log their location properly. A procedural error, not a clue. The print is marked and cataloged as erroneous contact. Local ABC affiliate Keefe, covers the story. A photo of Lindsay smiling by a lake is broadcast across southern Idaho. Comment threads light up with speculation. Hikers, spiritualists, and even missing persons hobbyists begin to circulate their maps. But the ground search yields nothing. Two forest volunteers report smoke near a ridgeline above the Indian Rock Cut. A team hikes out and discovers charred wood, a makeshift pit, and what looks like a torn fleece sleeve. It's promising, until the sleeve tests positive for synthetic insulation used in camping tarps. A routine hunter's shelter. The fire pit dates back nearly 10 days. Unrelated, Sheriff Louis Vandover holds a press briefing. We have no evidence of foul play at this time. The terrain is difficult, but we're doing everything possible. At this stage, this is still considered a search and rescue operation. Behind the scenes, officers begin compiling an SAR 104 report, used when a missing hiker goes unlocated for 48 hours. Flyers go up in Salmon. Locals form prayer groups. Former classmates organize a volunteer sweep of unofficial trails. But a new kind of narrative begins to circulate, whispered at gas stations and diner booths. Stories of lights in the mountains, of people seeing figures watching from the treeline, of a trapper in the 70s who vanished near the same fork in the trail. An old logger calls the station and says, "There's something wrong with that path. The forest swallows sound up there." Authorities make no public comment on the folklore. A hiker named Rhea Mallory reports finding a boot, women's size 7, in a frozen patch of earth 4 miles north of Point Zero. It's partly embedded, lightly frosted, with no obvious tears. It's sent for analysis. Initial results confirm it matches a brand Lindsay wore, but DNA is inconclusive due to contamination. Next to the boot, a shallow indentation in the dirt, a partial fingerprint, is lifted. It cannot be matched. It is filed as Evidence 004-B. On October 25, 2004, after nearly 150 personnel hours and 3 full grid sweeps, the official search was scaled back to passive status. SAR teams are demobilized. Only forensic analysis and tip follow-ups remain. Lindsay Mercer is reclassified as missing suspicious circumstances. Sheriff Vandover announces, "We will continue to investigate all leads. But at this time, we must acknowledge that the likelihood of finding Lindsay in the search area is low." Melanie, her sister, breaks down during a press interview. "I don't care how long it takes. I don't care what the odds are. She didn't just walk off and disappear." On November 4th, while re-examining Lindsay's laptop, a data recovery specialist uncovers a deleted photo. It's blurry, taken near dawn, possibly with shaky hand. Foreground, pine trees. Background, a ridgeline. But on the far left edge of the photo, almost out of frame, is a figure. Not Lindsay. No face. No detail. Just standing. Lindsay Mercer vanished without a trace after hiking into the Lemhi Mountains on a cold October morning in 2004. Her phone, her car, and even a possible last photograph offer pieces, but no answers. Now we turn to what came next. The long silence, the theories, and the haunting question that still echoes through Salmon, Idaho. After search efforts were suspended 6 days in, the Lemhi County Sheriff's Office transitioned the file to case LM 04-2249. Status: missing person, active monitoring. Evidence was cataloged, tips logged, and a single detective assigned to review all follow-up leads. Sergeant Hal Winthrop, 19 years with the department. Flyers stayed up across central Idaho well into November. The Mercer family hired a private search consultant, Ray Rulick, formerly of the Idaho State Search and Rescue Task Force, who conducted 3 independent backcountry flyovers, thermal imaging scans, and secondary ground sweeps. Nothing new was discovered. The discovery of the partial fingerprint near the recovered boot sparked brief optimism, but testing against state and federal databases returned no match. The FBI declined to take over the case due to no credible evidence of abduction or interstate involvement. Despite local talk, Lindsay's journal, recovered post-disappearance, offered no clear motive or plan, just a cryptic final entry, dated October 11, 2004. There are places a map doesn't show, but I saw it once before. I know it's there. I know the silence. That line would become the subject of years of online speculation. By spring of 2006, the case officially cooled. Case LM 04-2249 was reclassified as inactive, led exhaustion in February 2007. On the 10th anniversary of Lindsay's disappearance, new attention emerged from a podcast segment covering the case. The episode, titled Vanished Without Altitude, reignited public interest and brought several calls to the sheriff's office. One caller, a former seasonal ranger, claimed to have seen Lindsay's Subaru at the trailhead on October 13th, not the 12th. This directly contradicted the established timeline, but under scrutiny, the ranger's memory wavered. No logs, no photos, no time-stamped evidence. The lead was ultimately dismissed as unreliable. Still, the sheriff's office reopened the file briefly in late 2014 for reevaluation. It was closed again in June 2015. Status: unresolved/no viable suspect identified. Now, nearly 2 decades later, 3 main theories persist, each plausible, each unsettling. Some believe Lindsay never got far on the trail, that her encounter with bowhunter Bill Crowley may have been the last moment she was free. This theory hinges on opportunistic abduction, that someone was already out there watching, possibly waiting. The figure in the blurry photo, recovered from her deleted files, feeds this line of thinking. Investigators explored several persons of interest. Derek Millstone, 47, a seasonal hunting guide with a prior harassment charge. He worked in the Lemhi area during the fall of 2004 and lived out his truck. Rick, an unidentified man reportedly seen at a local bar 2 nights before Lindsay vanished, bragging that he knew places no cop could search. The man paid in cash, left no trace, and was never identified. Still, no physical evidence linked anyone to Lindsay's disappearance. And notably, there were no tire tracks near her parked Subaru that didn't match hers. No drag marks. No struggle. If someone abducted her, they did so on foot, leaving nothing behind. As one former detective put it, if it was an abduction, it was the cleanest I've ever seen. Could Lindsay have planned this? Could the disappearance be her final escape? Some of her old classmates from Boise State recall her talking about disconnecting, about how the digital world made her feel hollow. She deleted most of her social media months before vanishing. Some believe her final journal entries indicate an intent to vanish, not a stumble into tragedy. Her journal's line about places a map doesn't show is often cited as a metaphor. But was it? One curious thread: a small storage unit in Twin Falls was paid up for 6 months after her disappearance. The name on the lease wasn't Lindsay's, but handwriting analysis suggests she may have filled out the rental form. Inside, nothing but a single hiking map, rolled and marked in red ink, with 3 triangles drawn deep into an untraveled section of the Lemhi Range. No fingerprints. No surveillance footage from the facility. Skeptics argue the theory collapses on motive. She just started a new job, was on good terms with her family, and had no significant debt or criminal history. Even her therapist, interviewed confidentially, said she showed no signs of suicidal ideation or delusional planning. So if she chose to disappear, why and how has she never resurfaced? The terrain around Indian Rock Cut is notoriously dangerous. Rock slides, sheer cliffs, sudden hypothermic exposure. Dozens of documented incidents in the past 3 decades. SAR veteran Ray Rulett believes Lindsay may have slipped, fallen into a ravine, or taken shelter and succumbed to the elements. But if so, why wasn't she found? Even partial remains should have surfaced by now. And then there are the local legends. Old-timers speak of the Gap, an area where compasses spin and birds go quiet. Some believe Lindsay ventured into this dead zone and was taken by what no one will say directly. The story of the trapper who vanished in 1974 comes up often. Just like Lindsay, he left no trace beyond a trailhead and a partially packed bag. Rural folklore or cautionary tale? That depends on who you ask. But the truth remains, the Lemhi Mountains don't always give back what they take. Lindsay's family kept hope alive for years. Her sister Melanie updated a blog called Finding Lindsay for over a decade, posting old photos, search updates, and anniversary tributes. The last entry, posted in 2019, reads, "15 years later, we still wait. We still believe." Her mother, Karen Mercer, reportedly plays Lindsay's voicemail every October 12th at 8:45 a.m., the time she likely stepped onto the trail. It's saved on an old flip phone, never erased. The town moved on, but quietly. Hikers still pass Indian Rock Cut, but most don't linger. Volunteers organized annual search hikes for 6 years after her disappearance, but participation dwindled. Still, her poster remains on the corkboard inside the Main Street diner. Tape corners yellowed, ink fading. No one takes it down. Locals say, it just belongs there now. In 2021, a hiker posted a photo on a wilderness forum. The image, taken from a high ridge, showed what looked like 3 small stacked stones deep in an unmarked gulch. The uploader didn't recognize the significance, but sharp-eyed followers of Lindsay's case noticed something. The stones matched the triangle pattern from a map found in the Twin Falls storage unit. A search team was never sent. COVID protocols and budget constraints prevented it. As of today, the photo remains unverified. The location has not been identified, and Lindsay Mercer's case remains open but cold. So, what happened to Lindsay Mercer? Was it a tragic accident, a planned escape, or something far more sinister? Drop your theories in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more stories exploring real-life horrors and haunting disappearances.